In the shadowed halls of Arden's ancient citadel, where the wind howled like the ghosts of betrayed lovers through cracked stone walls, a single drop of blood fell from the king's dagger onto the marble floor. It spread slowly, a crimson omen, as the monarch wiped the blade clean on the hem of his velvet robe, his eyes cold as the winter sea. This was no ordinary execution. It was the ritual culling of impurity, the silent decree that had stained the throne for generations. Illegitimate blood must never threaten the line, whispered the old laws etched in forbidden tomes, and so the royal family had become architects of death, their hands drenched in the lives of the unseen heirs. But on this night, as the moon bled red over the jagged mountains, one such child had slipped the noose of fate, Illyra, the girl who would ignite the flames of rebellion and drown the kingdom in its own secrets. Illyra had grown up in the squalor of the outer villages, where the air reeked of damp earth and unwashed despair. Her days spent scavenging roots from the forest floor and mending rags for the local tanner. Her mother, a frail woman named Mira with eyes like shattered glass, had always claimed Illyra's father was a wandering merchant lost to the wars. But the lies crumbled like autumn leaves when Mira lay dying of the black fever. In her final delirium, she clutched Illyra's hand and rasped the truth. "You are of royal blood, child. The king. He took me in the shadows of the harvest festival, his seed planted in secrecy. Flee, for they will come for you as they did for the others." Illyra, 18 winters old with hair as black as raven feathers and skin pale from years hidden from the sun, stared in disbelief. But the proof burned in her veins, a birthmark on her shoulder, shaped like the Arden crown, identical to the one whispered about in tavern tales of the king's own flesh. The hunt began swiftly, as if the palace walls themselves had ears. Royal assassins, cloaked in midnight leather and armed with poisoned blades, descended upon the village under the guise of tax collectors. They slaughtered Myra's kin first, her body still warm in the grave, to erase any whisper of lineage. Illyra escaped by mere chance, hiding in the hollow of an ancient oak as the screams echoed through the night. She watched from the shadows as the leader, a scarred man with the royal insignia branded on his neck, snarled to his underlings. The bastard whelp must die. No loose threads for the throne. Her heart pounded like war drums, fear twisting into rage. She fled into the wilds, the forest swallowing her whole, where thorns tore at her flesh and wolves howled her pursuit. Days blurred into a haze of starvation and paranoia. Illyra survived on berries and stolen scraps, her mind replaying the horrors of Arden's history, the tales of illegitimate children vanishing like mist. Whispers in the villages spoke of the royal family's dark pact, forged centuries ago when the first king, mad with paranoia, consulted a sorceress in the forbidden caves. She had bound their line with a ritual of blood and fire, demanding the sacrifice of any child born outside the sacred marriage bed to ensure the throne's eternal strength. Kings and queens alike upheld it, their unions often twisted by necessity. King Roderick, Illyra's unwitting sire, had wed his own sister, Queen Isolde, in a ceremony drenched in incense and veiled threats, their bed an altar of enforced purity where passion curdled into duty. But Roderick's appetites wandered, siring bastards in the arms of maids and festival revelers, only to dispatch them in secret rites. One such child, a boy named Thorn, had been drowned in the palace baths at infancy, his tiny cries silenced by the queen's own hand. Another, a girl of 12, was fed to the hounds after a seer divined her claim. Murder was the family's sacrament, sex its hidden vice. Princes bedding daughters in shadowed chambers to keep the bloodline pure. Rituals where royal seed was spilled in orgies of loyalty, all to appease the ancient curse. Illyra's path led her to the rebel encampment deep in the whispering woods, a labyrinth of mist-shrouded trees where outlaws gathered like vultures around a corpse. The rebels, led by a grizzled warrior named Garrick, were remnants of fallen noble houses, their banners tattered from battles lost to the crown's tyranny. Garrick, his face etched with scars from a failed uprising, eyed Illyra suspiciously as she stumbled into their firelight, her clothes ragged and bloodied from a skirmish with a royal scout. "Who sent you, girl? Speak or taste my blade," he growled, his sword half drawn. Illyra, her voice steady despite the tremor in her limbs, revealed her mark, the crown birthmark, and spun her tale, omitting nothing of the king's violation of her mother or the assassin's pursuit. The camp fell silent, then erupted in murmurs. Garrick's eyes widened. He had lost a sister to the palace's hunts. Her body found mutilated in a ritual circle, symbols carved into her skin to ward off her impure spirit. They took her in, forging her into a weapon. Under the rebels' tutelage, Illyra learned the arts of shadow and steel, how to wield a dagger with lethal grace, to poison wells without a trace, to seduce secrets from loose-lipped guards. Garrick became her mentor, his rough hands guiding hers on the bowstring. Their nights filled with strategy whispered over flickering flames. But alliances bred complications. Among the rebels was Lyrian, a lithe archer with eyes like storm clouds, who shared Illyra's bed in the quiet hours. Their encounters were fierce, born of desperation. A tangle of limbs and gasps in the underbrush, where pleasure drowned the fear of tomorrow. Lyrian murmured against her skin, "We fight for a world where blood doesn't dictate worth." As their bodies moved in rhythm, a brief rebellion against the kingdom's cold doctrines. As Illyra delved deeper, she uncovered the palace's rot through captured spies and stolen missives. The royal family indulged in forbidden rites in the Undercroft, where altars slick with blood hosted ceremonies to the old gods. Prince Harlan, the king's heir and Illyra's half-brother, had married his own daughter, young Princess Illyra, in a twisted union to strengthen the line. The wedding night was a spectacle of depravity. Witnesses forced to watch as the prince consummated the bond amid chants and incense, her cries echoing through the halls. Illyra, barely flowered into womanhood, bore a child in agony, only for it to be deemed illegitimate by the seers. Twins, one malformed, and both were slain in a fire pit, their ashes scattered to bind the curse. Murder followed murder. A bastard son of the prince, sired on a chambermaid during a drunken revel, was beheaded in the courtyard, his head displayed as a warning. Sex in the palace was a weapon, queens taking lovers to birth pure heirs, only to poison them if the blood proved tainted. Queen Isolde herself orchestrated the deaths, her jealousy a venom that spared no one. Illyra's quest for allies extended beyond the woods. She infiltrated a border town disguised as a minstrel, her lute hiding a concealed blade. There, in a smoke-filled inn, she met Thorn's ghost, or so it seemed. A man named Darius, claiming to be a survived bastard, approached her with a scarred palm. "I was the boy they drowned, but the gods spared me," he whispered, revealing how a sympathetic guard had swapped him with a peasant's corpse. Darius joined her cause, his knowledge of the palace layouts invaluable. Together, they plotted raids, striking supply caravans to starve the capital, assassinating key enforcers in their beds. One night, Illyra slit the throat of the scarred assassin who had led the village purge, his blood warm on her hands as he gurgled, "The king knows your face now." The kill fueled her, but it drew the noose tighter. The turning point came during a harvest moon ritual, when the royal family gathered in the grand hall for their annual purification. Illyra and her band snuck into the citadel through forgotten tunnels, the air thick with the scent of decay and forbidden herbs. Disguised as servants, they witnessed the horror. King Roderick, naked and anointed in oils, lay with a circle of chosen concubines in a orgiastic rite, their moans blending with priestly incantations. Prince Harlan and his daughter-wife Illyra presided, her eyes hollow as she poured libations of blood wine. Illegitimate captives, 3 children dragged from hiding, were bound to the altar. The king rose, dagger in hand, and plunged it into the first, a boy's chest blooming red as the crowd chanted, "Purity through sacrifice." Illyra's blood boiled. She signaled the attack. Chaos erupted like a storm. Rebels burst from the shadows, arrows flying, swords clashing against royal guards. Illyra fought her way to the altar, her blade singing through the air. She faced Prince Harlan, his face a mask of fury. "You are the whore's spawn," he spat, swinging his sword. Their duel was brutal, steel on steel echoing amid screams. Illyra dodged his thrusts, her training prevailing as she drove her dagger into his thigh, then his heart. He collapsed, gasping, The curse will claim you too, Queen Isolde shrieked, unleashing hidden assassins, but Garrick felled her with an arrow to the throat, her body crumpling in a pool of silk and gore. King Roderick, cornered on his throne, faced Illyra last. His eyes, mirrors of her own, widened in recognition. "Daughter," he murmured, not in remorse but calculation. "Join us. The blood calls." Illyra hesitated, the weight of her lineage crushing, but rage won. She thrust her blade into his chest, twisting as he whispered, "All for the throne." He slumped, lifeless, the hall falling silent save for the drip of blood. In the aftermath, Illyra exposed the secrets, burning the forbidden tomes, parading the royal corpses through the streets. Rebels stormed the palace, freeing prisoners and dismantling the altars. But victory was bittersweet. Lyrian fell in the fray, his body cradled by Illyra as he breathed his last. "Change it, for us." Darius vanished into the shadows, perhaps to claim his own path. Illyra ascended not as queen but as liberator, forging a new council where blood held no sway. Yet in quiet nights, she wondered if the curse lingered, the throne forever stained in blood, a reminder that power's hunger never truly dies. The kingdom of Arden endured, scarred and reborn, its dark medieval legacy, a tale etched in the annals of time. Continuation Part 1. In the mist-shrouded valleys of Arden, where ancient oaks whispered secrets to the wind and the soil held the bones of forgotten kings, Illyra wandered as a shadow among the living, her orphan existence a veil of forgotten sorrows in the humble village of Eldridge. The thatched roofs sagged under perpetual rain, and the villagers toiled in fields scarred by frost, their lives a cycle of drudgery unbroken by the grandeur of the distant throne. Illyra, with her raven locks tangled like thorns and eyes reflecting the stormy skies, scavenged the ruins of an abandoned cottage one fateful dawn, her fingers sifting through dust-laden relics in search of salvageable cloth or forgotten herbs. Amid the decay, her hand brushed against a concealed compartment in the hearthstone, revealing a weathered parchment sealed with wax bearing the faint imprint of a crown, its edges frayed as if clawed by time itself. The letter unfolded like a curse awakened, its ink faded yet insistent, recounting in cryptic runes the tale of a royal indiscretion. A king's fleeting embrace with a village maiden during a masked revel, birthing a child marked by destiny's cruel jest. Hints of lineage danced across the page. A birthmark akin to the sovereign's emblem, prophecies of bloodlines entwined with peril, and warnings of the throne's unyielding purge against those who threatened its sanctity. Illyra's heart thrummed with the pulse of revelation, the words igniting a fire within her soul that banished the chill of orphanhood, compelling her to seek the capital's spires where truth lurked amid gilded lies. She departed under the cloak of twilight, her meager possessions bundled in a sack, the letter clutched against her breast like a talisman, her steps swift along the winding paths that snaked through shadowed forests and over treacherous ridges toward the heart of Arden's power. Yet shadows pursued her from the outset, mercenaries of the royal guard, clad in mail etched with arcane symbols and mounted on steeds black as midnight, dispatched by whispers from the palace seers who divined disturbances in the ethereal threads of fate. They moved like specters, their blades whispering promises of oblivion, closing the distance with relentless cunning, ambushing wayfarers and scorching trails to obscure her flight. Illyra evaded them through cunning born of desperation, hiding in cavernous grottos where luminescent fungi cast illusions of safety, fording raging rivers that clawed at her limbs, and scaling cliffs where eagles nested in defiance of the void below. The pursuit grew fiercer, arrows hissing past her like vengeful spirits, forcing her deeper into the wilds where the air thickened with the scent of ancient magic and the ground hummed with buried enchantments. It was in the labyrinthine depths of the enchanted thicket, where vines twisted like serpents and illusions warped the senses, that Illyra encountered the mysterious rebel named Kyle, a figure emerging from the fog like an apparition forged from myth. Tall and cloaked in hides adorned with runes of rebellion, his features chiseled by hardship and eyes gleaming with the fire of hidden agendas. He extended a hand wreathed in subtle glow, his voice a murmur woven into the rustle of leaves as he promised aid against the encroaching hunters, swearing by the old gods to guide her to the capital's underbelly where truths could be unearthed without the throne's gaze. Unbeknownst to her, Kyle harbored ulterior motives, his loyalty fractured by personal vendettas against the crown. Visions of avenging a slain kin and seizing artifacts of power concealed in the palace vaults, using Illyra's royal blood as a key to unlock forbidden doors. He led her through hidden passages veiled by sorcery, sharing knowledge of evasion spells and forgotten trails. Their journey a dance of peril where ambushes were thwarted by his swift daggers and arcane wards. Yet each step bound her fate tighter to his shadowed schemes. As they pressed onward, the mercenaries' noose tightened, clashing in skirmishes amid thunderous storms that masked the clash of steel and the cries of the wounded. Kyle's prowess revealing glimpses of his true intent through calculated risks that served his ambitions more than her quest. Illyra, driven by the letter's mystical pull, forged ahead with unyielding resolve, the dynamic whirl of pursuit and alliance propelling them toward the capital's looming walls, where the throne's blood-soaked legacy awaited its reckoning in the mists of destiny. Continuation Part 2. In the veiled heart of Arden's capital, where towering spires pierced the heavens like spears forged in the fires of ambition, and the streets pulsed with the ceaseless rhythm of intrigue, Illyra slipped into the shadows of destiny, her form cloaked in the humble garb of a maidservant, her raven tresses bound beneath a linen coif that masked the fire in her gaze. The palace loomed as a colossal beast of stone and enchantment, its walls etched with runes that shimmered under moonlight, warding off the unclean and binding secrets within their labyrinthine depths. Guided by Kyle's whispered lore of hidden entrances, ancient conduits carved by forgotten artisans, Illyra infiltrated the servants' quarters at the hour when the stars aligned in ominous patterns, her steps silent as the breath of ghosts upon the polished marble floors. She assumed the role with cunning grace, scrubbing hearths blackened by sacrificial fires and carrying trays laden with elixirs that masked the bitter tang of poisons, her eyes ever vigilant for the threads of evidence that would unravel the dynasty's crimson tapestry. As days wove into nights under the palace's oppressive dome, where chandeliers of crystal refracted light into illusions of grandeur, Illyra delved deeper into the undercurrents of corruption, her hands sifting through discarded parchments and eavesdropping on murmurs that echoed through tapestried halls. She uncovered fragments of the royal family's atrocities, ledgers stained with ink and blood, chronicling the vanishings of illegitimate heirs, their names crossed out in ritualistic strokes as if erasing souls from the weave of fate. In the dim vaults beneath the throne room, where torches flickered like dying stars and the air hung heavy with the scent of decayed tomes, she stumbled upon hints of a secret organization, a clandestine brotherhood known as the Veil Keepers, guardians of shadowed truths who documented the dynasty's crimes in encrypted scrolls hidden within hollow statues and false walls. These mystics, descendants of the ancient sorceress who had first cursed the bloodline, preserved accounts of murders veiled as accidents, of princes entwining with kin in forbidden rites to summon arcane powers, and of advisors orchestrating purges under the guise of divine mandates. Illyra's spirit ignited with the discovery, for the Veil Keeper's archives held maps to ritual chambers where bones of the slain whispered prophecies, and volumes that detailed the king's nocturnal indulgences. Seeds sown in secrecy, only to be harvested in death's embrace. Yet peril coiled like a serpent in the Garden of Revelations, for the royal advisor, a wizened figure named Vortigern, whose eyes gleamed with the cunning of ravens and whose robes concealed daggers enchanted with binding spells, had foreseen disturbances in the ethereal veils through his scrying orbs. Vortigern, master of illusions and keeper of the throne's darkest pacts, laid a trap woven from threads of deception, scattering false clues that lured Illyra into the forbidden archives during a lunar eclipse, when shadows grew sentient and wards weakened under cosmic strife. As she deciphered a scroll revealing the advisor's own hand in a massacre of bastard children, thrown into abyssal pits where their cries fueled infernal energies, Illyra felt the air thicken with malice, the chamber sealing itself with runes that ignited like embers, trapping her in a cage of flickering barriers that drained her vitality and summoned spectral guardians with claws of frost and eyes of void. The dynamic clash of escape unfolded in a whirlwind of arcane fury, Illyra's dagger flashing against ethereal forms that clawed at her flesh, her blood awakening latent powers tied to her royal heritage. Visions of ancestral strength surging through her veins like liquid fire. But exhaustion claimed her edges, the trap's magic siphoning her essence until shadows blurred into oblivion. It was then that Kyle emerged from the veil of concealment, his form materializing like a phantom summoned from myth, his runes glowing with counterspells that shattered the barriers and banished the guardians back to their abyssal realms. With swift precision, he bore her from the chamber through passages known only to those who danced on the fringes of loyalty, his touch a blend of salvation and enigma as he murmured incantations that mended her wounds with threads of starlight. Yet in the haze of rescue, Illyra glimpsed the deepening mystery of his purpose, for Kyle's eyes betrayed fleeting ambitions, covetous glances toward the Archive's relics, artifacts of power that could bend fates and command legions, hinting at a vendetta not merely against the crown but toward claiming its cursed mantle for his own shadowed lineage, perhaps a forgotten branch of the dynasty itself, twisted by exile and arcane pacts. Their flight through the palace's underbelly pulsed with urgency, corridors twisting like the roots of a world tree, pursued by Vortigern's minions, armored sentinels infused with golemic essence, their footsteps thundering like earthquakes as spells clashed in bursts of ethereal light. Kyle's prowess revealed layers of his enigma, wielding forbidden magics that warped reality, folding space to evade capture and summoning illusions of decoy phantoms that drew the hunters astray. As they emerged into the capital's fog-laden alleys, where lanterns swayed like will-o'-the-wisps and the night air hummed with the city's restless pulse, Illyra's resolve hardened amid the uncertainty, her alliance with Kyle a double-edged blade forged in the fires of necessity. The secret organization's echoes lingered in her mind, a beacon amid the gathering storm, propelling her quest forward into realms where truths and treacheries intertwined like vines in an eternal dance, the throne's bloodied legacy casting longer shadows across the mystical tapestry of Arden's fate. Continuation Part 3. In the labyrinthine underbelly of Arden's capital, where cobblestone veins pulsed with the lifeblood of forgotten enchantments and the fog clung like the breath of slumbering dragons, Illyra forged onward through the veil of uncertainty, her alliance with Kyle a fragile bridge spanning the chasm of trust and deception. The city's spires loomed as silent sentinels, casting elongated shadows that danced with the flicker of alchemical lanterns, while the distant toll of bells echoed like omens from the ethereal realms. Kyle, his form a silhouette woven from the threads of mystery, led her to the hidden sanctum of the rebels, a cavernous refuge concealed beneath the ruins of an ancient temple, where vines of luminous crystal illuminated murals depicting the fall of elder gods and the rise of mortal tyrants. Here, amid the gathering of outcasts and visionaries, Illyra joined forces with the insurgents who plotted the overthrow of the royal power, their ranks swollen with dispossessed nobles, arcane scholars, and warriors scarred by the crown's unyielding grip, all bound by oaths sworn upon relics of primordial magic. The rebels, under the enigmatic banner of the Shadowed Covenant, wove their schemes in chambers resonant with the hum of forbidden spells, their plans a tapestry of subversion, infiltrating the palace guard with shape-shifting illusions, sabotaging the arcane conduits that fed the throne's defenses, and rallying the oppressed masses through whispers carried on enchanted winds. Illyra, her spirit tempered by the fires of revelation, integrated seamlessly into their fold, her royal bloodmark serving as a key to unlock sealed grimoires that detailed vulnerabilities in the dynasty's arcane armor. She shared the fragments of truth gleaned from the Veilkeeper's archives, revealing the shocking depths of the king's depravity. Not merely the destruction of illegitimate children, whose essences were siphoned in blood rites to fuel the throne's longevity, but the monarch's pact with ancient magic drawn from the abyssal voids beyond the mortal coil. The king, enthroned upon a pedestal carved from the bones of primordial entities, invoked eldritch forces through nocturnal ceremonies in the palace's heart, where ley lines converged like rivers of starfire, granting him unnatural vitality and dominion over fates. He bound the souls of slain bastards to spectral chains, harvesting their latent power to weave spells of invincibility, his form sustained by the stolen youth of those he deemed impure, while the royal advisor Vortigern channeled these energies into wards that repelled rebellions and bent the wills of subjects to unthinking obedience. As the dynamic currents of conspiracy swirled, Illyra delved into the rebels' arsenal of mystical artifacts, crystals pulsing with captured lightning, blades forged in the forges of volcanic spirits, and tomes that unfolded visions of alternate destinies. She trained in the arts of shadow weaving, her movements a blur of ethereal grace as she sparred with comrades in illusory arenas, evading strikes that shattered phantom barriers and conjuring veils of mist to conceal advances. Kyle, ever the enigmatic guide, revealed glimpses of his arcane prowess, summoning familiars from the ether to scout enemy positions and inscribing runes that amplified the rebels' incantations. Yet his motives deepened in opacity, his eyes occasionally flickering with the hunger of one who sought not mere liberation but ascension to the vacated throne, perhaps to harness the same forbidden magics for his own veiled lineage. The Covenant launched probing strikes under cover of enchanted storms, disrupting royal caravans laden with tribute essence, vials of distilled life force extracted from the kingdom's fringes, while Illyria infiltrated lesser noble houses, planting seeds of doubt through subtle enchantments that unveiled visions of the king's atrocities in the dreams of the elite. Yet as the rebellion's momentum gathered like a tempest brewing in the cosmic depths, Illyria found herself ensnared in the crucible of choice, her path bifurcating like the roots of the world tree between the thorns of revenge for her fractured past and the blooming branches of the kingdom's uncertain future. The ghosts of her origins haunted her visions, the violation of her mother in the shadowed revels, the merciless hunts that claimed kin she never knew, the king's hand extending the dagger of erasure to all who bore his tainted seed. Vengeance whispered through her veins like a venomous serpent, urging her to wield the rebels' power for personal reckoning, to storm the throne room in a blaze of arcane fury, unleashing spells that would unravel the king's immortal facade and scatter his essence to the void winds, avenging the illegitimate souls bound in eternal torment. But the fight for Arden's tomorrow pulled with equal force, visions unfolding in prophetic trances induced by the Covenant's seers. A realm reborn without the yoke of blood curses, where magic flowed freely to heal scarred lands, villages flourished under equitable enchantments, and the throne dissolved into councils guided by the stars' impartial light. To choose revenge risked corrupting the rebellion's purity, twisting its arcane might into a mirror of the dynasty's tyranny, while embracing the future demanded sacrifice, the burial of personal grievances in the soil of collective renewal, forging alliances that might spare even remnants of the royal line if they bent to redemption's call. The conflict raged within her during a pivotal rite beneath the temple's vaulted dome, where rebels communed with ancestral spirits in a circle of glowing sigils, their energies merging in a vortex of luminous threads that illuminated paths of destiny. Illyria, positioned at the nexus, felt the dual forces clash like warring elements, revenge manifesting as crimson flames that scorched illusions of the king's demise, the future as azure mists weaving tapestries of harmonious realms. Kyle's presence amplified the turmoil, his subtle manipulations steering her toward vengeance, perhaps to exploit the chaos for his ascent. Yet the Covenant's elders channeled stabilizing auras, reminding her through empathic bonds of the kingdom's broader tapestry, where individual threads must yield to the whole. As skirmishes escalated into open confrontations, with rebel forces clashing against royal legions in fields ablaze with spellfire, bolts of ethereal energy arcing like comets, golems of stone crumbling under countercurses. Illyria's decision crystallized in the heat of battle, her actions a dynamic fusion that balanced the scales. She channeled her rage into targeted strikes against the king's magical anchors, shattering obelisks that sustained his power while sparing the lives of conscripted guards, paving a path where vengeance served the greater dawn. The rebellion surged forward in this alchemical synthesis, Illyria at its vanguard, her form aglow with inherited magics awakened in the forge of choice, leading assaults on arcane strongholds where the king's bound souls wailed for release. Vortigern's traps unfolded in waves of illusionary horrors, phantom armies rising from mist-shrouded graves, curses that twisted flesh into grotesque forms. But the Covenant's unity prevailed, their spells intertwining like vines reclaiming ruined towers. Kyle's mysteries unraveled partially in the fray, his true aim revealed as a quest to absorb the throne's residual power. Yet Illyria's resolve anchored him, binding his ambitions to the collective cause through oaths etched in blood and starlight. As the capital's walls trembled under the onslaught, the kingdom teetered on the precipice of transformation. Illyria's journey a testament to the eternal dance of fate, where personal shadows yielded to the radiant promise of a new epoch, the ancient magics of Arden reshaping under the weight of her unyielding will.